Everyone assumes the last Dragonborn is the most beloved Elder Scrolls protagonist because Skyrim sold 60 million copies, but he's not even close. The actual fan favorite is a character most casual players have never heard of, and today, we're ranking all 6 main protagonists from most forgotten to most loved based on actual community sentiment, starting with a hero so invisible that even hardcore fans forget he exists. The Eternal Champion. The very first Elder Scrolls protagonist is also the most forgotten. His name was Talon. He was an apprentice studying sorcery under Rhea Silmaine at the Imperial Court when everything went wrong. The Imperial battle mage Jagar Tharn murdered both Silmaine and imprisoned Emperor Uriel Septim VII in a pocket dimension of oblivion, then threw Talon into the Imperial dungeons as the last living witness. Here's where it gets interesting. Silmaine's ghost contacted Talon from beyond death and guided him on a quest that lasted an entire decade, 10 years. From 3E 389 to 3E 399, the Eternal Champion traveled across every province of Tamriel collecting 8 pieces of the Staff of Chaos from 16 different dungeons. But Tharn had drained the staff's power into the Jewel of Fire, basically turning himself into a lich. In the final battle beneath the Imperial Palace, Talon used the reassembled staff to drain the jewel and disintegrate Tharn into ash. The Emperor was freed. Talon received the title Eternal Champion and was promised he would rule by the Emperor's side. And that makes him unique among every protagonist because he had 0 special powers. No prophecy, no dragon blood, no divine blessing. He was literally just the last person alive who knew the truth. The unchosen one who spent a full decade fixing everything manually, but nobody remembers him. Walk into any Elder Scrolls discussion, and the Eternal Champion generates exactly 0 conversation. Arena came out in 1994, and the game was never supposed to be an RPG. It was designed as a gladiatorial combat game where you'd fight across arenas until becoming Grand Champion in the Imperial City. The RPG side quests became more engaging during development, so they dropped the arena concept entirely. Lead developer Vijay Lakshman spent 1 month writing what he described as 5 books worth of narrative content, and the protagonist had almost no characterization by design. The cultural legends surrounding the Eternal Champion are fascinatingly contradictory. Nords claim he was a king's son. Dunmers say she was a daughter of Almalexia. Bosmer call her an Aeliad descendant. Vampire clans insist the champion was a vampire from beyond Nirn. Nobody knows who Talon actually was because the game gave you complete freedom to be anyone. Here's the problem. Arena is 30 years old. Almost nobody in the modern fanbase has played it. In every Reddit poll, every tier list, every forum ranking, the Eternal Champion lands dead last. The most affectionate comment you'll find is from an ESO forum user who said, "Every time you're struggling with your PUG and Crypts of Hearts, remember the Eternal Champion soloed all of them." That's it. That's the peak of his cultural relevance. Even Alduin's Wall in Skyrim prophesied the events of Arena as the first event, confirming the Imperial Simulacrum's cosmic significance. The champion themselves vanished from history completely. Despite the Emperor's promise of shared rulership, Talon never appears again in any game, any book, any reference. He saved the entire empire and became a historical footnote. The most important thing the Eternal Champion did was start a franchise. Everything after that belongs to someone else. The Agent, the hero of Daggerfall, triggered one of the most reality-breaking events in Elder Scrolls history, and almost nobody knows it happened. Born in 3E 375, the Agent was a Blades operative sent by Emperor Uriel Septim VII to the Iliac Bay with 2 missions. Investigate the ghost of King Lysandus haunting the streets of Daggerfall, and recover a compromising personal letter the Emperor had written to Queen Minnesera. The Agent's ship wrecked on the Western Cliffs, and here's what makes them unique. They're the only Elder Scrolls protagonist who escaped their opening prison without supernatural help. No guiding ghost like the Eternal Champion. No Emperor opening your cell like the hero of Kvatch. No dragon attack like the Dragonborn. Just privateers, a cave, and your own ability to survive. What the Agent uncovered was a web of political intrigue involving 7 factions all fighting over the same artifact, the Totem of Tiber Septim. This thing controlled the Numidium, the colossal Dwemer brass golem that Tiber Septim used to conquer all of Tamriel. Emperor Uriel wanted it. 3 kings wanted it. The orc leader Gortwag Gro Nagorm wanted it to legitimize Orsinium. Manamarco the King of Worms wanted it for necromantic power. And the Underking, Zurin Arctus, Tiber Septim's former battle mage, wanted his soul back from the Mantella powering the machine. Daggerfall shipped with 6 mutually exclusive endings. You could give the totem to any of these factions. And instead of picking one as canon, Bethesda made all of them happen simultaneously through a dragon break, a rupture in the fabric of time itself. During 2 days in 3E 417, every faction activated the Numidium at once. Time became non-linear. Minutes lasted years. Whole armies teleported hundreds of miles. A Blades agent had her eyes burned from their sockets experience just witnessing it. The 44 independent kingdoms of the Iliac Bay consolidated into 4: Daggerfall, Sentinel, Wayrest, and Orsinium. Mannimarco ascended to godhood and became a constellation. The Underking reclaimed his soul and finally died. Reality broke and repaired itself in a way that made every player choice canon. The agent themselves may have been killed by the Numidium. The Blades never contacted them again. Lore suggests they died during the warp in the West, erased by the same temporal event they caused. The Dragon Break concept was created by developer Ted Peterson specifically to solve the sequel problem, but Bruce Nesmith, who later became Skyrim's lead designer, publicly expressed regret about it. He said the Dragon Break could have been handled better, which is fascinating because lore fans consider it one of the most brilliant narrative devices in the entire franchise. The idea that multiple contradictory timelines can all be simultaneously true is peak Elder Scrolls metaphysics. A cut feature would have let you import your arena character, making the agent and eternal champion the same person. Bethesda confirmed they're canonically separate individuals. Community sentiment mirrors the eternal champion's obscurity, but slightly warmer. One ESO forum user summarized it perfectly. The agent of Daggerfall was in the right places at the right times. That's about it. Reddit discussions routinely dismiss them. In power rankings, the agent places above the eternal champion solely because they controlled the Numidium, however, briefly. Their story is the most politically sophisticated of any protagonist, but it reads like a history textbook rather than a character arc. The agent caused the warp in the West and then vanished, possibly atomized by their own success. But if you think breaking reality is impressive, wait until you meet the protagonist who beat a Daedric prince in his own realm while technically being undead, the Vestige. The Vestige has accomplished more than every other Elder Scrolls protagonist combined, and the community does not care at all. Set in 2E582, roughly 800 years before Skyrim, the Vestige was a mortal who got murdered by the necromancer Mannimarco as a sacrifice to Molag Bal, the Daedric prince of domination. Their soul was ripped out, and they were thrown into the Wailing Prison in Cold Harbor, the literal plane of oblivion ruled by the King of Rape. Here's where the metaphysics get weird. When a mortal's soul is replaced by a Daedric vestige, they reform from chaotic creatia, called azure plasm. Most soul shriven become degraded copies that slowly lose their minds. But the vestige possessed an anuic aspect, an intrinsic connection to the forces of creation that produced a perfect duplicate. They kept their memories, their personality, their appearance, and gained functional immortality. Every time they die, they reform at a way shrine. Even after recovering their soul later, their body remains azure plasm. They are technically a form of Daedra with a mortal soul grafted back in. That has never happened before in Elder Scrolls lore. The accomplishment list is absurd. The Vestige reunited the 5 companions, retrieved the Amulet of Kings, got imbued with Akatosh's divine power, and defeated Molag Bal in personal combat inside Cold Harbor. They forced a Daedric prince to release all stolen souls. Then, across years of DLC content, they stopped Nocturnal from seizing control of the entire multiverse, battled dragons and elsewhere, confronted Mehrunes Dagon, faced the forgotten Daedric prince Athalia, who recognized them as a pathwalker, and saved Tamriel approximately 17 different times. One fandom user ranked the Vestige as the second strongest protagonist. He defeated Molag Bal in his own realm using the Amulet of Kings. He defeated Nocturnal when she was literally trying to become ruler of the Elder Scrolls multiverse. By feat count alone, the Vestige should dominate every power ranking, but nobody loves them. The problem is ESO, the inherent MMO problem. Thousands of simultaneous vestiges running around conflicts with the Elder Scrolls tradition of a singular prisoner hero. NPCs call the Vestige mercenary or traveler regardless of accomplishments. The character shows no memory of previous quests across DLCs. Game director Rich Lambert acknowledged the rough 2014 launch. We didn't have an identity. The protagonist felt generic, and the game struggled to capture the single-player experience. Community pushback is brutal. Critics note the Vestige needed external divine power for every major fight. The Amulet of Kings against Molag Bal, Meridia's blessing in Cold Harbor. They don't have innate abilities like Dragon Souls or CHIM or the Mantella. A common sentiment, they're the most powerful errand runner in Tamriel. The Vestige lacks distinctive memes, iconic moments, or a recognizable visual identity. You cannot picture the Vestige's face because they don't have one. The split is clean. The ESO community respects the resume. Single-player fans dismiss the character entirely. The Vestige is respected more than loved, defined by volume rather than personality. They saved the world more times than anyone else and generated less fan art than a mudcrab, but at least the Vestige's accomplishments are debatable. The next protagonist conquered pop culture so completely that casual fans assume he's the franchise, while lore purists call him the most boring hero Bethesda ever wrote, the last Dragonborn. No No Elder Scrolls protagonist is more famous than the Dovahkiin. Skyrim sold over 60 million copies. The horned helmet is recognizable to people who have never touched a video game. Fus Ro Dah became one of gaming's most iconic catchphrases within days of the November 2011 launch, and the lore-focused Elder Scrolls community thinks he's kinda boring. The last Dragonborn is a mortal blessed with the blood and soul of a dragon by Akatosh. They can absorb dragon souls, learn Thu'um shouts instinctively, and their prophecies answered, Alduin the World Eater returning to destroy the world. The name Dovahkiin parses as Dov-Akin, born hunter of dragonkind. They're the first Dragonborn since Tiber Septim to be summoned by the Greybeards, who named them Eismir, Dragon of the North, the same title held by the man who became the god Talos. The story hits every epic fantasy beat. The Helgen dragon attack during a near execution. The first dragon kill outside Whiterun, where guards witness soul absorption in absolute awe. The climb to High Hrothgar. The revelation that Paarthurnax, the Greybeard's leader, is a dragon who once served Alduin. The journey to Sovngarde to fight Alduin alongside 3 ancient Nord heroes. It's a straightforward hero's journey with dragons, and it works. The Dawnguard DLC introduces Serana, voiced by Laura Bailey, one of gaming's most beloved companion characters, and the vampire Lord Harkon's plot to blot out the sun using Ariel's bow. The Dragonborn DLC pits the hero against Miraak, the first Dragonborn in Hermaeus Mora's realm of Apocrypha. And here's the dark implication. Mora calls the last Dragonborn his new champion at the end, suggesting eventual servitude to the Daedric Prince of forbidden knowledge. That's the implied fate. Eternal slavery to an eldritch horror. Todd Howard's design philosophy centered on simplicity. The dragon concept had a one-page design document. Howard wanted to eliminate the restart problem from Oblivion, where players would spend 3 hours, think I chose wrong, and start over. Skyrim lets you play first and develop naturally. Any race can be Dragonborn. Howard cheerfully noted you can be an Argonian lizard who is Dragonborn. The cultural impact is staggering. Fus Ro Dah spawned thousands of videos. I used to be an adventurer like you. Then I took an arrow in the knee, deliberately written by Emil Pagliarulo to give guards personality. Spawned t-shirts, tattoos, references in The Simpsons and NCIS, and has its own Wikipedia page. The opening cart scene, "Hey you, you're finally awake," became a meme format that lasted a decade. The stealth archer phenomenon, every player defaulting to sneak archer regardless of intended build, became a beloved community joke. Skyrim is everywhere. The Dragonborn is an icon, but in lore-focused communities, the Dragonborn takes a beating. The criticism is consistent, generic chosen one, where the Nerevarine had to politically maneuver across great houses and Ashlander tribes, actively earning the title through ambiguous prophecy fulfillment. The Dragonborn simply is Dragonborn, discovered passively when a dragon dies near Whiterun. You absorb the soul and guards go, "You're Dragonborn, you didn't do anything. You were born special." A Reset-era user captured the sentiment perfectly. What I took from this thread is basically it's just a fight between Nerevarine and COC. Dragonborn is a jobber. The implied fate of servitude to Hermaeus Mora feels ignoble compared to becoming a god of madness or sailing to an uncharted continent. Fans love Skyrim the game more than they love the Dragonborn the character. The protagonist is a vehicle for the player to experience dragons, not a compelling figure in their own right. The Dragonborn conquered pop culture and lost the hardcore fanbase. But if you think that's a harsh judgment, wait until you meet the protagonist who went from literal nobody to a Daedric prince, the hero of Kvatch. The hero of Kvatch has the most satisfying character arc in the entire franchise. They start as an anonymous prisoner with 0 special powers, and end as a Daedric prince, 0 to god of madness. Nobody else comes close to that trajectory. They begin in the Imperial City dungeon where Emperor Uriel Septim VII, fleeing Mythic Dawn assassins through an escape route that happens to pass through their cell, recognizes them from prophetic dreams. Before dying, Uriel entrusts them with the Amulet of Kings and the task of finding his secret illegitimate son, Martin Septim. That's it. That's the entire qualification. The Emperor had a dream about you. The brilliant narrative choice is positioning the hero as a supporting character to Martin's story. Martin is the true savior, a humble priest of Akatosh, who discovers he's the Emperor's heir. The hero enables everything, closing the first Oblivion Gate at Kvatch, which earns them their title, gathering allies for the Siege of Bruma, infiltrating the Mythic Dawn cult, retrieving the amulet from Mankar Cameron's pocket dimension of paradise. The hero does the work, while Martin becomes the legend. In the climax, Mehrunes Dagon physically manifests in the Imperial City, his full body, a Daedric prince walking through the streets of the capital destroying destroying everything. Martin shatters the Amulet of Kings, becoming an avatar of Akatosh, a colossal dragon god who defeats Dagon and is permanently transformed into a stone statue in the Temple of the One. The Septim bloodline ends forever. Martin's last words to the hero, the shape of the future, the fate of the Empire, these things now belong to you. And then, the Shivering Isles. DLC elevates everything. The hero enters Sheogorath's realm of madness to stop the Grey March, a cyclical destruction by Jyggalag, the Daedric Prince of Order. Here's the backstory. Jyggalag was so powerful that the other Daedric princes feared him and cursed him to become the thing he hated most, Sheogorath, the embodiment of chaos and madness. At the end of every era, Jyggalag breaks free, destroys the Shivering Isles as the Grey March, and then transforms back into Sheogorath with no memory of what happened, an eternal cycle. The hero defeats Jyggalag in combat and inherits the mantle of Sheogorath through a process called mantling. In Elder Scrolls Metaphysics, mantling is when a mortal becomes indistinguishable from a god by perfectly embodying them. The hero of Kvatch literally becomes a Daedric prince, and Skyrim confirms it. During the Mind of Madness quest, Sheogorath references events only the hero would know. Butterflies, blood, a fox, a severed head. Oh, and the cheese. The Shivering Isles entrance involved butterflies, the Grey Fox from the Thieves' Guild questline, Mathieu Bellamont's mother's severed head from the Dark Brotherhood, and Martin Septim transforming into a dragon, the cheese, because Sheogorath watched his only friend sacrifice himself to save the world. If this is the hero of Kvatch, and all evidence suggests it is, it marks the only time two Elder Scrolls player characters meet. The character accumulates more canonical titles than any other protagonist: Savior of Bruma, Champion of Cyrodiil, Divine Crusader if you complete the Knights of the Nine DLC. And the best part is they earned every single one through effort, not birthright. Fan sentiment is overwhelmingly positive and trending upward. CBR wrote an article arguing the hero of Kvatch is arguably the most powerful protagonist in the series. An ESO forum user stated plainly, COC is the strongest one. He became a Daedric prince while Dragonborn was manipulated by Hermaeus Mora. The Oblivion meme ecosystem, the adoring fans screaming by Azura, by Azura, by Azura, and guard dialogue like, stop, you violated the law, creates an endearing cultural context around the game. The 2025 Oblivion remastered release reinvigorated this love. Fans call the hero underrated so frequently that the label became its own form of consensus. The community's beloved underdog who started with nothing, saved the world as someone else's sidekick, and ascended to literal godhood. But if you think becoming a Daedric prince is the peak, there's one protagonist the community loves even more, and their greatest accomplishment was walking away. The Nerevarine. The Nerevarine wins. Across Reddit polls, forum rankings, tier lists, and lore debates, Morrowind's protagonist consistently claims the top spot among the engaged Elder Scrolls community, and the reasons run deeper than nostalgia. The Nerevarine is the literal reincarnation of Indoril Nerevar, the ancient chimere Hortator who united the Dark Elf people 4,000 years ago and was betrayed by his closest allies. Vivek, Almalexia, and Sothasil, the Tribunal, used forbidden Dwemer tools on the heart of Lorkhan to transform themselves into living gods, possibly murdering Nerevar in the process. The Daedric Prince Azura cursed them for this betrayal, turning all Chimer into ashen-skinned Dunmer, and prophesied Nerevar's return. Over millennia, many tried to fulfill the prophecy and failed. Their ghosts reside in the cavern of the incarnate, encouraging the true incarnation. You are the Nerevarine. You are the chosen. You can't fail. What separates this from generic Chosen One narratives is ambiguity. The game never confirms whether you truly are Nerevar reborn or just someone who happens to fulfill the criteria. Bethesda committed to never resolving this. And the Nerevarine must earn every title through political maneuvering, convincing all three great houses, Redoran, Hlalu, and Telvanni, to name you Hortator, convincing all four Ashlander tribes, the Urshalaku, Ahemusa, Zainab, and Arabanimson, to proclaim you Nerevarine. This requires persuasion, bribery, completing faction questlines, and sometimes violence. The Corpus Disease sequence is the franchise's most brilliant narrative mechanical moment. Infected by Dagoth Gers, who delivers Dagoth Ur's hauntingly respectful offer of alliance, once we were friends and brothers, Lord Nerevar, the Nerevarine visits the 4,000-year-old Telvanni wizard Devaith Fear. You venture into the Corpusarium, a dungeon filled with Corpus victims who've become bloated monsters. You meet Yagrum Bagarn, the last living Dwemer, a massively obese elf who served under Kagranak and survived only because he was in an outer realm when his entire race vanished. Fear provides an experimental cure that removes the negative effects but leaves the disease disease itself, making the Nerevarine immune to all disease and aging, functionally immortal. The final battle with Dagoth-Ur defies villain conventions. Dagoth-Ur maintains honor, allows the first strike, and offers a genuine alliance to drive the Empire from Morrowind. His tragedy, a loyal friend corrupted by the heart of Lorkhan while his brothers became gods through betrayal, makes him one of gaming's most compelling antagonists. The Nerevarine strikes the heart of Lorkhan 5 times with the Dwemer tools Sundr and Keening, destroying it and scattering its power. Dagoth-Ur becomes mortal and dies. The Blight ends. And the Tribunal loses their divinity. The Tribunal expansion delivers the franchise's greatest villain monologue. Almalexia, maddened by her loss of godhood, murders Sotha Sil and lures the Nerevarine to the Clockwork City as a sacrifice. You were to be my greatest martyr. The heroic Nerevarine, sacrificing all to protect Morrowind from the mad Sotha Sil. The Nerevarine kills a living goddess. In Blood Moon, they defeat an aspect of the Daedric Prince Hircine in mortal combat on Solstheim. The body count of gods and godlike beings is unmatched. Michael Kirkbride shaped much of the Nerevarines' metaphysical depth. The concept represented a massive leap from Arena's generic fighter and Daggerfall's political agent to a prophecy-driven reincarnation embedded in an alien culture's religion, politics, and philosophy. Ken Rolston, as lead designer, wrote the outline of all quest lines himself. The result was the most narratively cohesive Elder Scrolls game ever made. After fulfilling their destiny, the Nerevarines sailed to Akavir, the mysterious eastern continent, and was never heard from again. That departure is the final masterstroke, where the Dragonborn may be trapped by Hermaeus Mora and the hero of Kvatch lost themselves in madness. The Nerevarines simply left on their own terms. GameRant's tier list placed them first. What sets the Nerevarine apart is that their fate is their own. One Reddit user captured it perfectly. So powerful he went off to Akavir out of boredom. The Nerevarine is the community's champion not because they're the strongest, but because their story trusts the player enough to leave the most important question unanswered and then lets them walk away into legend. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more, click the video on the screen now.